to hear from Reisa, and she's going to talk about the types of planning women should be doing as they join the workforce, manage their careers, and look forward to retirement. Reisa?
Thank you, Renee. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, my 16 years at Chia-Li has really afforded me the opportunity to not only understand the challenges that women face as they go into retirement, but to appreciate the planning that's necessary for a successful retirement. And so my hope for you today is that as you leave today, you will leave with three things. One is understand where each of you in this room is relative to your personal retirement plan. Two, understand the necessary steps for retirement. And if there's anyone in this room who hasn't started retirement planning, that you would have a burning desire to start today. And I mean that. And so with that, I would like to ask the audience a question. I know you're supposed to be asking me questions, but I thought I put a spin into it. So if you could please have the next slide. So it's a trivia question. I'm going to ask for a show of hands of what percentage of women participate in their own individual retirement plan, and I'm talking nationwide. How many people think A, 30%? How many people think B, 65%? No cheating, not to say hands. And how many people think C, 45%? 45% is the answer. But I will tell you, at TIAA-CREF, 60% of our participant base is made of women. So let me go into, I'm going to talk to you today about three of the challenges that women face as they enter into retirement. Now, certainly there are many more, some of which both Renee and Karen touched on, and you're probably going to hear some of the same daunting statistics. So let's go to the next slide, please. And the next. Okay. So the first challenge is women may need to save more money due to living longer, right? At TIAA-CREF, 50% of our participants retiring at age 60, 50% of our female participants retiring at age 60 can expect to live until the age 89, compared to our male participants who can expect to live until the age 86. So let's think about that for a moment. That means that as women, we have to save on average 3 additional years than our male counterparts from a retirement standpoint. And as we heard earlier, women are expected to retire alone. As a matter of fact, according to a Wiser article in 2009, 40% of women retiring at age 65 and older can expect to do so alone. So not only are we living longer, but we're probably doing it alone. So for those of us who were expecting to either have a partner or a spouse assist us in retirement, we need to think broader. We need to think not only that we need to support ourselves, but we also need to support ourselves longer, and we need to supplement any income that we would have potentially received. Something to think about. The second item is women may have fewer years to save necessary amounts, and you might say, why? Well, on average, women take 12 years out of the workforce to take care of children. That's 12 years you're not contributing to a retirement plan, and certainly your employer isn't either. However, I will tell you there are options for women that aren't in a workforce to contribute to some sort of plan, whether you're working full-time or part-time. There are options out there, and many of us aren't aware of that. Okay? So we're living longer, right? We're taking time out of the workforce. We're also getting sick as we get older. So as we become ill, we also need to take care of ourselves. So yet another competing priority. And I think Renee may have mentioned it as well, or Karen, that women tend to be the primary caregiver for families. 60% of women are the primary family caregiver. So not only are they taking care of themselves, their children, they're also taking care of ailing parents. That's a lot of competing priorities for women to keep in mind and still plan for retirement. Lastly, women may not be able to save as much. Again, we talked about the fact that they come into the workforce later, they have less years, they're having to spend money for themselves, for health benefits, et cetera, Women also, historically, we've heard today on a panel, tend to make less than men. And so we're making less than men, we're living longer, we're retiring by ourselves, right? And so the probability of us outliving our retirement assets is that much higher. And so I'm here today to say to you, let's start planning earlier. I think we've all said it. Let's not wait until we're age 50 or 60 to say, let me start contributing to a retirement plan. I can speak from experience. At age 22, I had a retirement plan. Why? Because I was financially literate. Why? Because I worked for a financial services company. How many of us are actually in that position? So for those of you that are here, you have friends out there who haven't started planning for retirement, it's up to you to spread the word, to encourage them to start saving. They don't have to put a lot of money into a retirement plan. Start small. I can tell you, from a female standpoint, we also tend to be a lot more conservative. Personally, when I started working for Chia-Li, I went into the most safe product they have, an interest-bearing account. I quickly learned that that's not the place I wanted to be, so I then became much more aggressive. But the bottom line is, if we start early, we can build a nest egg that will help us plan for the necessary things we need to do in retirement. And so let's talk about what are some of those things we can do. Well, you have to set goals. There are short-term goals and there are long-term goals. Short-term goals, anything less than 3 years. Long-term goals, 3 to 5. Next slide, please. Before I get into your short-term, long-term goals, just some statistics for you to absorb. Not meaning to scare you, these are real-life facts. First one is, on average, a female retiring at age 65 can expect to live 19 years. That's 3 to 5 years longer than a man retiring at the same age. And again, I think you've heard this before. Women on average earn 76% of what men earn, resulting in an average lifetime earnings differential of $250,000. Women leave the workforce for, again, an average of 12 years to raise children or care for relatives, resulting in a loss of $550,000 in wages. That's $550,000 that you can't put into your retirement plan. But let's talk about how we can remedy some of that, right? So let's talk about what are some of those short-term goals, what are some of those long-term goals. Next slide. All right. So again, just a few suggestions. I'm certainly not making any recommendations. I'm not a financial planner, so let me put it out there. Just some steps that could potentially help you as you plan for retirement. So the first is to reduce unnecessary expenditures, and what we mean by that is to take a look at your cash flow. Take a look at what's coming in, what's going out. Are you putting your money in the right places? Are you truly spending money where it should be spent? Are you looking at those high-interest credit cards and paying them down? Because remember that your goal is to increase your net worth and reduce your debt. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you pay down those high-interest credit cards. The next is to have an emergency fund. Many of you have probably heard of an emergency fund. It's 3 to 6 years worth of living expenses. It's 3 to 6 months. Sorry. 6 years.
It's not out there.
3 to 6 months of living expenses. So not only are you covering your mortgage, you're covering your light bill, etc., etc. And that should be in an account that's pretty liquid. So don't tell me about the stock account you have wherever. That's not going to help you. You need to be able to easily assess those funds, 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Once you have that, it says here, begin or increase saving for goals, and it says pay yourself first. Well, part of paying yourself first is what we've been talking about today, right? So you need to ensure that you have a retirement plan. That's first and foremost. Before you think about going out and getting that car or a nice pocketbook or shoes, you should ensure that you have a retirement plan. And certainly check your tax withholding. Consult your tax consultants, your tax advisors, at least once a year, and ensure that your withholding is where it needs to be and that you're not paying the IRS more than you need to. That's from a short-term standpoint. Let's talk long-term. Long-term, again, goes back to the theme of today's discussion, which is retirement planning. You should ask yourself some very serious questions. What do I want my retirement to look like? Who will I retire with? Do I wish to provide income for someone else while in retirement? Will I have enough health savings to take care of myself and potentially my loved ones when I'm retired? The second is paying off your mortgage. Some folks are fortunate enough to have paid off their mortgage before they actually retire. Some are not. And so what you want to think about is how can you pay down that mortgage? You'd be surprised to see if you pay 1 or 2 extra mortgage payments a year, what that would do for your mortgage. Protecting your assets and building a financial legacy. So many of us hope to leave something for someone, an heir, a child, a grandchild, who knows. But in order to do that, you have to protect those assets, right? You have to ensure they're the right investments and that you're talking to your investment advisors about where and when to invest those funds. And with that, I'm going to leave you with a few action steps. And that is, again, pay off those high-interest credit cards if you haven't already done so. Have a financial security fund of, again, 3 to 6 months, emergency fund. Review your existing insurance to protect your family and your property. And lastly, have a will and a living will.